Welcome to Common Sense Garage, where we've been making you look smarter since 2020. We're here at Britt's Customs, and I know I told you guys that I was going to have the Dodge Magnum up and going and getting it into the shop. This is the shop that I'm talking about, but beyond that, I need to get the oil changed in my other vehicle, which is an '89 Toyota pickup truck. Now, I've already done some different things, custom things to this truck. I did a custom paint job on it probably a year and a half ago now, and I replaced tail lights, replaced headlights. I went through the entire engine on this thing. It's got the 22R in it, and I went through the entire engine, had it rebuilt, had everything put back like brand new. It was my father's before I got it, and it's been a really great vehicle. It's a 5-speed manual transmission, but I'm going to pull it in here today. Sorry if you hear the air compressor going or air blowing. He's out there working on his stuff. My dad, maybe we'll get you to meet him here shortly, but I'm going to pull this Toyota truck in and get this thing jacked up and ready to change the oil in it, and you guys are going to tag along. Alright guys, let's see if we can get this thing pulled in, if she'll fire up. She's been sitting here for a little while, but she's kind of nasty. And I know I showed you guys the Magnum getting washed the other day, but this thing needs a great deal of clean out. So we'll see if we can't get it to start. And I'm going to set this other camera down here and see if I can't get a pretty cool shot underneath. It is carbureted, so it takes a little bit of finesse to get her going, but once she's going, she's usually pretty decent about going. She just doesn't like starting off. Like I said, she don't like starting off. She'll be alright though, I promise. It's kind of some tight quarters back here, so anytime I'm pulling a car or truck or any kind of vehicle in, it's kind of a get it going how you can kind of deal. Let's try this like this. See if we can get her. In here, she don't like going because I haven't drove her in a while, but she'll be all right. Trying to get this thing lined up where I can Driving across this camera is not the easiest thing. We'll see. I think I got her now. And besides that, I still have to get it warmed up a little bit so that I can change the oil. Alright. Hopefully that was a pretty cool shot for you guys. Let's change some oil. How about it? Alright guys, so first things first. I need to get this hood popped. I'm going to take this key out because that buzzing gets annoying after a while. Like I said, you can really tell. Turn some more lights on in here. Really tell this thing's seen better days when it comes to washing. Most definitely. But I'll get you some close-ups of the hood. I didn't replace the radiator or anything like that, but most of what I replaced was the hoses. Did replace the air conditioning compressor. I still need to replace the brake fluid master cylinder because it's getting some spongy brakes to it. But like I said, we'll get you up underneath and let you look at it and see what you think about it. So here's the deal, guys. I'm gonna try and get you guys as close to the action as I can without you guys getting in the way. And that's gonna be a rather interesting challenge, but I think we'll be able to do it. Here we go, guys. Let's see if we can get this thing jacked up. So what you want to do on a vehicle like this is you want to find the most suitable place to jack it up. And for me, there is a crossbar right at the back of the oil pan that will completely support this truck, and it will allow me to jack up both sides at one time. Now, if you don't have that luxury, if you don't have that ability to jack up both sides at one time, it's very simple. You can use something as simple as your tire jack that's in the back of your car to jack it up. It's not going to hurt anything. Again, I'm jacking it up a lot higher than probably what I need to because I've got to get this creeper up underneath there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to support this thing on either side with a jack stand just so that it's completely out of my way and so you guys can kind of see as well, hopefully. Sorry if it sounds like I'm out of breath, but it's kind of hot out here in the shop. No AC, but we had some rain come through a little earlier, and so it's a whole lot better than what it could be. All right. So again, whenever you're jacking your vehicle up, you want to make sure that you have it jacked up and supported firmly enough that it's not going to fall on you whenever you let everything back down, whenever you let the jack back down. Whole purpose in jack stands, supporting the vehicle so that we can take the jack out and get it out of our way. Alright guys, what I like to do is I like to give the truck a good shake just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere without me knowing about it, right? And so for today's purposes, if I didn't have you guys in here looking at me and watching me, I'd probably leave the jack up underneath it and just work around the jack, because for me, I feel a little more comfortable with the jack stand supporting it and the jack as a backup. Some people are different. Some people think different. I am one of those people. I don't like to take chances whenever it comes to a couple £1,000 pickup truck or vehicle falling on my chest, because I don't know when anybody would be able to get to me to help me get out from up underneath it. So that's that. We've got the jack stands up underneath it. So this camera right here is going to stay out here so that you can see everything going on. I'll move you guys up whenever I get ready to refill it with oil and to give you a top view of what it looks like when I take the oil filter off. And the GoPro will be for underneath. So hopefully all this works out. If not, just know that I'm loosening the drain plug down here to pull out all of the oil, to drain all of the oil into a pan. And then I'll probably go ahead and take the oil filter off, and that way they can be draining both at the same time. And then I'll show you a little hack, a little tip from the old time guys on how to put the new oil filter back on, how to get it ready to go so that you're not so that it doesn't cause you problems. So stick around for a tip, a trick, a hack, whatever you want to call it. I call it wisdom. I call it common sense, because that's what this channel is about, and it's about old-timer common sense. So stick around and I'll get you guys set up, and we'll get this oil drained. Alright guys, let me say this first. This is probably one of the mechanic's best tools that he could ever purchase if he's constantly doing oil changes, things up underneath the vehicle or what have you. But best thing he could buy, probably the most abused tool that he could buy, and that is a creeper. And I'll show you. This thing's got 6 wheels on it. You can probably make one at home. I picked this one up at, well, you guys can probably guess it from the name, but picked it up at Harbor Freight for, I think, not more than 20 bucks, maybe something like that. But it's been a valuable tool. It saves your back, saves your shirts from crawling around and dragging around up underneath this on the dirty floor. You know, and it just helps you to have your tools there by your side as well. Alright guys, so it's a 14mm wrench is what fits it. I'm going to get a 14mm socket because, again, like I said, I just like being able to pull it with a socket. So I'm going to get my trusty bucket that is gnarly looking. I mean, gnarly. You guys see that? Yeah, gnarly. Got all kind of trash in it. It's all good. We're not going to be reusing this oil anyhow. So in reality, you usually want to start the engine, let it come up to temperature, and really just warm the whole engine up so that, sorry guys, I gotta move this light, because if not, it's gonna have oil all over it. But anyhow, you want to start the engine, let everything warm up, but that way all of the oil gets down and out of the head, off everything, and yeah. So I didn't do that this time. I'm hoping that it will be okay, and that because this is just break-in oil, as you see, that stuff is pretty doggone black, because I had to drive it 500 miles since I had everything redone on the engine. And so it's just now reached, I think, about the 500, 550, something like that. Yeah, it's taken me a super long time in order to get that far, but you can see, man, it doesn't take long for this stuff to get black. So we're gonna drain this. I need to get me a rag. Okay, so if the oil is black, it's probably a good indication that you've driven a little too long before you change the oil. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It could mean several other different things, that the rings are wore, that the vehicle, if it's carbureted, it's been running a little bit rich. So the blackness in the oil is basically just a carbon buildup, a result of burning fuel in the combustion chamber, and then that soot, that residue getting trapped in the oil as the piston comes back down, and it just throws it right back into the oil pan, and that's the result of the black. Now, if you see oil that is milky, like looks like almost like a Wendy's milkshake, okay? Like a Wendy's milkshake. If it's that color, that consistency, you need to check one of two things. You need to check your radiator to make sure you're not losing any antifreeze or coolant. And then I would say you probably need to go check the exhaust, because more than likely you have sprung a leak. Either there's a cracked head that causes that milkshake type consistency type look, or you've either blown a head gasket. The head gasket's pretty easy to fix, depending on the vehicle, but the cracked head requires a lot more work, a lot more effort, a lot more time, and it's probably going to cost you a little bit more. So you always want to take at least once every 2 weeks. I know the manual in your car, the owner's manual says check the oil once a week, check the tire pressure, but let's be realistic. How many of us have the time or either have the desire or know-how in order to do that? Not many, right? So check your oil at least once every 2 weeks. That's my recommendation. That's usually what I do. It just keeps you from having a lot of trouble. Now, on the previous video of me detailing the Magnum, and I know it wasn't such a great detail video, but I just wanted to get that thing washed, because I'm telling you, it was filthy. By my standards, it was filthy. Not to mention, I had a hiccup the day after I washed that car, and where I had a run-in with a peacock. For those of you watching this video, you may know who you are. Everything turned out okay. Everything was fine, but the peacock saw its reflection in the car and decided that it wanted to fight. It was a little ticked off that day, but anyhow, we got it situated. It was coming into the shop for paint anyhow, so it didn't do a whole lot of damage. But you'll get to see that up close whenever I start to repaint the Magnum. So back to the oil. Check it at least once every 2 weeks, okay? Do that for me, once every 2 weeks. Know where you have oil leaks at. If you see a puddle in your driveway, try and find out and pinpoint where that oil leak's coming from, because it's not only going to save the environment, but it'll also save you money in the long run, because you will know where it's coming from and you can potentially stop the leak, which will keep oil in the engine where it belongs and keep it from dripping on the ground, and it will put money back in your pocket because you won't be buying oil to fill it back up. So another thing you want to look for whenever you take the oil plug out, most newer model vehicles have a magnetic oil plug. That being said, on the tip of the oil plug, I'll get a little bit closer here so you guys can see. On the tip of the oil plug, there's usually a magnet right in there. And so what you want to be looking for, and you can see this one doesn't really have anything. It's just oil. That's all that's on it. Can you see it? Let me get behind so this thing focuses on. Yeah, well, it's not going to do it. But anyhow, it's just oil on the end of this one. Sometimes you may see metal filings, metal shavings. If you do, pay close attention to that, because that usually means that some component in the valve train or in the engine itself is starting to deteriorate and starting to fail. Now, if you have a brand new engine that you've just rebuilt, there are certain situations where you want to see some of that metal in there, because that means that things are seating properly, means that everything is getting properly set so that it can function and drive for a long time. When the oil plug's out, there's usually a copper washer around the bottom edge of this thing. I don't have one for this one, and as a result, it's actually leaking a little bit around the drain plug. I'm going to try and see if I can find one here tonight before I put this thing back in, but if you don't have it, it's fine. Old timers used to tell me you could take a piece of copper wire and just wrap it around the plug itself in a spiral, around, not around the threads now, around the lip of the plug. And as you tighten it back into into the oil pan, it would seal itself back off. Never tried that, don't know if it works or not, but some of you guys out there may have already tried it. Let me know how that worked for you guys. Leave a comment down below. And so common things that I look for are leaks around the oil pan to make sure that the bolts haven't come loose, make sure nothing else has come loose. Abnormal oil consumption is your first indicator that you're losing it somewhere. Find it, figure out where it's at. It's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money. So let's get back to changing this oil. I'm getting ready to pull the oil filter off next. So I'm having a little bit of difficulty trying to get you guys a good view of the oil filter, but I think this is probably the best that I'm going to be able to get it for you. Hopefully you guys can see it. I might could go down there a little bit closer, but that red thing right there is the oil filter, and it's stuck on the side of the engine block. It's put on with just hand tight plus a quarter of a turn, I think, is what the book calls for, what the manual calls for to redo this thing. So it should come off with just my bare hands, because I try not to over tighten these things, because a lot of times you have trouble with it crushing the filter if you do that. Well, okay, so you probably didn't get to see the oil coming out of the pan. It's perfectly fine. You're not missing anything. The oil is black, like jet black. And so now that the oil is out of the pan, the oil pan that is, I'm going to slide this container over just a little bit. I'm going to take the plug off of my oil sending unit that lets me know that I have oil in the truck. And I cannot for the life of me get a good grip on that tonight. So, here's another old timer's tip. Get you a pair of vice grips. Excuse me, channel locks. Not vice grips, adjustable pliers, so that you can get to the oil filter. All right, guys, I got my set of adjustable pliers. I don't know if you can see them. This is kind of a homemade set, but they do make an oil filter wrench that just fits over that and takes a ratchet to take it loose. I don't have one of those currently. Now, there's also another way to do this, and that involves taking a flathead screwdriver and sticking through the end of it in order to get it loose. So guys, this thing's wanting to be super difficult, and I have no idea why, but it is. That's okay. You take it as it comes. Can't always win all of them, right? And so if I can't get this thing off, then I'm going to go grab a screwdriver, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about. I'll try a couple more times to get it off. And it's not coming. I'm getting oil everywhere. It's okay, I got my pan up underneath here to catch most of it. I think what's happened is I've put the oil filter on a little bit too tight last time. And now it's just not wanting to budge. So I may have to move you guys up top and see if I can get you around here maybe. So I'm not going to be able to do this with you guys in my hand. But as you can see, there's the oil filter. There's the switch, oil pressure switch. So once I get it to start spinning off, I'll pick you guys back up. You got the option to use an oil filter wrench or not. Go ahead and use the oil filter wrench. It'll be a lot easier on you. Good gracious, I have never I have never, ever had one this stubborn not to come off before. You know, I thought I had it, but apparently I don't. So, as you can see, it's pretty well crushed, all kind of ugly. Alright, so I got my screwdriver. Let's see if we can get this thing off, because I'm tired of messing with it already. It's a shame, right? Tired of messing with it and hadn't even been on it for that long. So again, guys, this is what you run into sometimes. There's no way this thing. Okay, finally. Good gracious, guys. That was a whole lot of hassle for nothing there, guys. Ooh, all down it. Never seen it take that long to get an oil filter off at all. So all I'm doing now, guys, is I'm just cleaning up the excess oil. So I'm trying to get you guys so you can see it, but right there is the rubber O-ring that is left from the old oil filter. So I'm going to pull it off. And as you can see, it's just a standard rubber O-ring, nothing special about it. But if that gets stuck on, you're going to play all kinds of grief trying to get the oil filter back off. So if this does get stuck on, you need to make sure that you remove it. And for the time being, I'm just going to kind of lay it wherever you're at, right there on the oil filter. You can see I've got it in the pan. Let me grab my rag. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rag and I'm going to go up in here. And I know you guys can't see that, but I'm going to go up in here and I'm going to wipe the surface, the mating surface on the engine where this oil filter sits at and attaches to. I'm going to wipe it off and I'm going to wipe the threads off for the oil filter itself. And then I'm just doing a general cleaning, whatever you want to call it, just to try and get all the excess oil off, because I don't want to be freaked out by seeing oil puddled everywhere after I get through with all this. So yeah, I don't know that I can get you guys up in there any further. Right here, this is a mating surface. There you go. So this is the oil sending unit right here. I've got my finger around. That's the plug that I pulled off. And then right up above that is where the oil filter rides. And more than likely, whenever I painted the engine block and everything, I probably got a little bit of a little bit of paint on it. And of course, rubber sticks to paint pretty bad. So that's probably what it was. So now I'll get you guys back out and show you the nifty trick, old timer tip to getting your new oil filter put on properly. Here's the old oil, like I was telling you guys, and here's the old oil filter and everything. So what I wanted to show you is, you can see this is the ring that I was talking about before, the rubber O-ring. You want to make sure that that's completely dry, completely as flat as it can be, no debris on it, because that's what seals against the engine block. So Best thing for you to do, if you can, is check and see that it's the right model. You can see that this is Purelator L1241. And so normally what would happen is you would take this oil filter off, you would unscrew it. There'd be oil down inside of it, there'd be oil around this ring. So what I want to do, what I normally do, is if you have, they recommend that you fill up, like I said, I just went around this with my finger and oil on it. Some manufacturers recommend that you fill up this oil filter before you get started putting oil into the vehicle. But on this particular truck, an 89 Toyota with a 22R on it, 22R engine, the oil filter is mounted on the side of the block. So if I put oil in this, it's just going to come pouring back out the way that it did whenever we started to unloosen it. So this one's going back on dry. The oil goes in on the top of the engine for the 22Rs. So I'm not worried about it starting dry, which is what most manufacturers don't want you to do with your cars, because if you do, you could cause permanent damage to it. So now I'm just going to go back up underneath here, screw this back on, get that crush washer for the oil pan, tighten the oil plug back up, and then I'll bring you guys up top. All right, guys, here's the deal. I told you I'd show you my Pops as soon as we got through. He doesn't know I'm filming this. He will by the time that this gets live on YouTube. Pops, I love you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in this world, and I wouldn't know how in the world to do any, and I mean any of this stuff. So I'm gonna give you a sneak peek at him, all right? There he is, guys, sanding on his Chevelle, one that he just got painted. If you want to see more of this Chevelle, take a look at my other YouTube channel called Britt's Customs 704, where we're diving into this Chevelle. He painted it. We've got an LS engine in it. Man, I'm telling you, dude, this guy knows his stuff. Okay, so here we are back up top. I got the oil filters put on, tightened up, hand tight plus a quarter of a turn. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the dipstick out. All right, so you see that there's an L and an F. Low, L means low, F means full. You see the crosshatch pattern in between. Technically, as long as you're in between this section right here, you are considered okay by the manufacturer. But we always like to put it up to the F mark, especially on the first time cranking it up, because the oil level is going to drop once you crank it up, because it's going to suck oil into the oil filter and therefore drop it down a little bit. Before we do that though, I want to make sure that we get this thing off the jack stands, back down on a level surface. Maybe I'll be able to talk sometime tonight. Back on a level surface, because you always want to check the oil on a level surface. Never want to check it on an uneven surface if you can help it. And then we'll start putting the oil back in. And I've got a tech tip for you on putting the oil back in that you'll see here in just a few minutes. All right, we're just going to do the reverse of what we did whenever we jacked it up the first time. Try and get it centered on it as you can. Like I said, it's less likely to slip off the jack and or slip off your jack stands, as long as everything's pretty well level. Again, whenever you're jacking it up, to get it off the jack stands, all you have to do is just jack it up just enough to relieve pressure off of the jack stand. And then you can remove the jack stand. So I'm kind of cleaning up as I go here, because I've got tools and everything else kind of strode around where we had such a awful time getting this thing pulled off. There's one down. Slide it out of the way. Now we'll let the truck back down. Hopefully it's not going to hit the camera. Nah, we're all good. Right here we have the oil fill cap. It simply screws off. And down inside there's still some excess oil from before. Oh, you know what we didn't do, guys? We didn't plug up the oil sensor. So I'm going to have to crawl back up underneath there and do that. Alright, so before I do that, let's go ahead and get some oil in it. Again, I am not sponsored by any particular person, any particular brand. This is just what I use in my own personal vehicle. So here you can see Lucas oil stabilizer. I can't tell you how many times that this particular bottle here, not this one in general, but this particular brand has saved me from a very expensive repair. Because this oil stabilizer is designed to lubricate and stick to the parts better than it would with just standard oil. So you no longer have dry starts, and that is a key to keeping your engine running efficiently, smoothly, and properly, is to make sure there's no dry starts. So I used to have a Jeep Cherokee, and I can't tell you, my wife did, I can't tell you how many times she just about ran that thing dry in oil, and had it not been for the Lucas oil stabilizer, we would have already been replacing the rings, pistons, probably the whole engine, because it would have probably been seized. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour this in here, and you notice that it is like almost like molasses. It's really thick, doesn't like to run a whole lot. And so I'm just putting that down in the engine. According to the back of the directions, it states that you can use this at a 10%, 20%, or up to a 25% solution in your oil, which would mean this particular engine takes 4 quarts of oil. So I'm using this one bottle, which is the equivalent of 1 quart of oil, and then I will put 3 more quarts of oil in it to bring this up to 4 quarts total capacity. Now you may be asking, Mark, where can I find the capacity of my engine for fluids? While that's draining, I'll get you guys the manual. And so right here's the manual that I'm using. It's for Toyota pickups, 4Runners. It's just a Haynes repair manual. You can pick it up at your local auto parts store. You can even pick it up online through Amazon, guys. Just do a search for your year, make, and model. In the very front of this manual, there's always a contents page. I don't know that you guys can see that. I'll try and get it to where you can see it. There's a contents page, and so what we're looking for is capacities. And so usually in these books, chapter 1 is tune-up and maintenance, routine maintenance. And so it talks about the different types of oils, the different types of capacities, fluids, whatnot. So there's a section right here for capacities, and I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Trying to get it kind of squared up there, but as you can see, engine oil with filter change, 4.5 quarts. So that's telling me that since I changed the oil, I drained it completely out of the engine, drained it out of the oil filter, the 1/2 quart is probably going to go into the oil filter once it first starts up. But this particular truck takes 4 quarts of oil completely to fill it up, as long as you haven't changed the oil. So owner's manual or repair manual says 4.5 quarts. This particular bottle of Lucas, from what I remember, is 32 fluid ounces, which equals 1 quart. So therefore I need 3.5 more quarts of oil put into this thing. I went and bought high mileage synthetic because I like synthetic. It's 5 quarts in this jug, but it's 1030. I think the truck actually calls for like a 530. Most vehicles, modern vehicles, call for a 520, 530. And basically what that number means, the first number on the oil stands for the weight that it will be whenever it is cold outside. The lower the number, the thinner the oil. The second number is the weight in which the oil will be at full operating temperature. The higher the number, the thicker the oil. So you'll have more protection on when this engine is up running at operating temperature, and so it will help keep your engine running cooler, and it'll help it function properly and not wear out as easily. This is a 5-quart jug, and there are markers ever so often on this jug for quarts. 1 quart all the way up to 4. 5 is where it's filled at right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour 1, 2, 3 and a half. I'm going to pour 3.5 quarts in here. And more than likely what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pour 3 quarts in here. And I'll probably go ahead and fire the engine up. We'll check the oil, but I'll fire the engine up to make sure that it's going to run properly. And nothing's going to be hiccuping or messing up for me. So on most oil containers, there is not necessarily a pour spout, but there's a proper way and an improper way to hold the oil container. And I'll show that with a old oil container that I have as soon as I get through pouring this. So right there, guys, you can see that I've already went from 5 down to a little less than 3 quarts. From 5, which was up here, down to a little less than 3 quarts down here. So again, that's 1, 2. I'm going on my 3rd quart right here. We already have 1 quart of oil in there with the Lucas. So technically this is starting out at 1 quart. So that would be 2, 3. I'm gonna go 4, and then I'm probably gonna stop and check it. So you can see that I'm just about on 4 quarts, almost there. So I'm gonna stop right there. We'll take my dipstick. I'm gonna wipe all this oil off the top of this engine, because if not, if you happen to spill any oil while you're changing it, make sure you wipe it up. Try not to get it on any of the engine components, because whenever they get hot, start to warm up and get hot, they will smoke like crazy, and you will think that something is royally wrong with your engine. So now, guys, you can see, I guess you can see that. You can see that I'm a little over full right there. So I'm gonna stop at 4 quarts like I told you, because I pretty well know this truck, and I want to show you that it will drop down. Once it starts, the oil will suck up into the filter. We're going to check to make sure that we don't have any leaks before we get going. I see a couple external leaks just from what we've done and what we spilt up underneath here. And I'm gonna plug in that oil pressure switch. So hang on, guys. You guys are going for a ride here. I know. Hoping I can grab it from up here. I may not be able to. I might have to borrow y'all's light. Oh. That oil pressure switch it literally just slips on. Not really that difficult. Yeah, not really that difficult. So it's on now, and let's start this baby up. Let it run for just a few moments, and then we'll check it. We'll check it again. So make sure that all your tools and everything's out of the way before you start the vehicle of the engine itself. So we're going to start it up and let's see what it looks like. So I'm looking inside. I'm looking for the oil light to go off. If the oil light stays on for longer than 3 seconds, shut the engine back off, because you've got a major issue and you didn't get enough oil put in, you don't have something hooked up, something working properly. Make sure you check that out. If you don't have an oil light but you have an oil pressure, make sure it's up about 30, 35, 40 pounds of pressure. That's on average, that's what the normal vehicle will run whenever it's running. It's normal pressure for it. If you don't have that, make sure you shut it off as quick as you can, because the quicker you shut it off, the less damage you'll do. Now on mine, it took about 3, maybe 4 seconds for the oil light to actually go off, but I don't hear any knocking. I don't hear any clatter that would indicate to me that there's a low oil pressure situation. So I think we're good. I'm going to let it run for just a minute, and then we're going to shut it off, and when we shut it off, we'll be able to check the oil again. What I like to do is I like to automatically wipe off the dipstick the very first time I pull it out, because you're going to get a erroneous reading. If you don't, it'll mess you up, in other words. All right, so hopefully you guys can see this. See if I can get it to focus on you. We'll do that. All right, so we're a little bit below full. Now listen, guys. If you run this engine long enough to bring it up to full operating temperature, you're probably going to have a low oil reading. That is the purpose in the hash marks on the dipstick. As long as it's toward the upper part of the hash marks, whenever you first check it when it's cold, you're good. If it's warm and it's down to the lower portion of the hash marks, more than likely you're still pretty good. So I'm going to add just a little bit more oil to get me up to 4 quarts. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to check it. And guys, I'm at 4 quarts. So I know the book read, if you drain the oil, you need to put in 4.5 quarts. Like I told you, I've changed the oil multiple times in this truck. I know this truck. Not many people can say that about their vehicles, but I know this truck because I've done it enough times. So that's why I did not put any more than 4 quarts in, because I'll go back and I'll check this dipstick now, and that should bring me up to reading full for where I'm sitting at right now. And just like that, we are dead on the money. Hopefully you guys can see the F there, but so yeah, it's that simple, guys. Now I promised you that I was going to show you how to properly use the oil container, because I've been getting a lot of questions about this. So it doesn't matter the container. This is break-in oil, which I was using on this engine anyhow. It doesn't matter about who makes it or whatever. But if you have an oil container that is offset like this, shaped like this, pay very close attention, because this is the tip for you. If you're pouring this into your engine and you don't have a funnel, good news for you, you don't need one with this type of oil container. Why is that? Because instead of pouring like you might think this away to get the oil in, no, that would be the wrong way. You end up spilling it all over the engine, all over everything. Instead, pour it like this, where the majority of the closed space, the opening is up top, and the majority of the closed space is down. That's what this is designed for, so that you can get this opening over top of whatever you're wanting to pour into, and the oil is still down in this region right here. So you're not leaking anything out, but you're able to get over top of the oil fill a little more easier than you would be like this, because as soon as you tip it this way, oil's going to start to come out because the oil is already full up to here. So again, don't pour your oil this way. Instead, pour it this way, with this being what's lower than the actual opening itself. That's going to help you guys out a lot, and I think it'll help you stay cleaner whenever you're changing oil or even filling up at the gas station. All right, guys, congratulations on changing your oil. I'm so thankful that you guys stuck with me through all this, even through the hassle of changing and getting that oil filter off. Man, I don't have any hair, but I was about ready to pull it out, because that's not the first time that's happened to me, but it sure sucks every time that happens. You're not alone whenever it happens to you, so you know, because you can go back and watch this thing. But hopefully I got some good footage for you guys so you could see up close and personal what they do whenever they change your oil at these local oil changing places, or what they should be doing when they change the oil at the oil changing places. If you have a kid at home, don't let them sit around playing video games, playing on their phone, on their tablet. Get them outside. Get them in here with you. Get them in the shop doing something productive. Get them in here doing something that you love to do, because I promise you, they will love to do it too. All it takes is you spending a little bit of time with them. Next episode, hopefully we'll have the Magnum in here, be starting to disassemble the top half of the engine to get the timing belt on, and water pump, and I'm going to change some spark plugs on it, serpentine belt. Man, we've got so much coming up, and so much is going to be jam-packed in these next couple of episodes. I may even have to split them up into 2 episodes each time, because I want you guys to be able to get this information and get it to you efficiently. So until next time, thanks for joining Common Sense Garage and watching this episode where we make you look smarter since 2020. We'll catch you next time, guys. See you later.